Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Beauty, where we talk all things beauty and business. I'm your host, Gigi Jeans. I am so excited to welcome my next guest, Renisha Davis, the Legacy CPA, where she helps people generate new strategies, build a legacy, help them, empower them, and let's build like generational wealth. That's kind of what I grasped from her. Renisha, welcome to the show, girl.
Hey, girl, hey. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here because we met at a panel with Snoop. And I was on a panel with you guys, and I was just like, oh, my gosh. I got to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here.
You know, because not only are you an accountant, you're a CPA.
Yes.
She's a big dog.
The big one, not the little.
Okay. And so I was sitting on stage and I was just like, wow, where's my note? I need to take some notes. I thought I knew stuff. You were like code 421 and da-da-da. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get her on the show because my book that I wrote, Behind the Beauty, it talks about setting up your business back office and how I feel like you can't have one without the other. You need to pay your taxes, and you need to have a professional person help you. Mm-hmm. You know, don't just go online and plug in some numbers because you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
They need to get with you.
Right.
So I'm happy to have you on here to help them.
Yes. Let's get them all the way together.
Y'all got to pay y'all taxes.
Yes.
Okay. We just don't make the money. You got to pay your taxes.
Yes. Yes.
So tell them a little bit about yourself and what made you start your own business and where you from.
Ooh. So I'm from College Park. I'm actually an Atlanta native.
What? You from here?
Yes.
A-Town.
Yes.
Are you a Grady baby?
I am.
Okay.
Exit 1, Washington Road is where I grew up.
Nice.
So with me being an Atlanta native, and being here all of my life, I decided to start my career in corporate finance after I graduated, from Georgia Southern with my accounting degree. Fun fact, I was a bank teller at the age of 9. So that was always a special interest of mine, picking up money, knowing how to organize it and helping my mom budget through, with her being a single mom. So it was a natural fit to major in accounting. And then I had sponsors along the way to get me into corporate. I think when I was 5 years into corporate, I realized that I didn't have the rhythm of a corporate girly. Mm-hmm. And there was something tugging me out of corporate and wanting to get back to the special interest. And, to just really make it simple, finance is about forecasting and doing great with the numbers that you have made in the business. Mm-hmm. Whereas accounting, I think a lot of people understand accounting to be like the bean counter, making sure that things tick and tie within your bank account. And I wanted to bring the unique combination of both to small businesses who didn't necessarily understand how to start the business and how to graduate from making under 6 figures to making 6 figures in profit. So that's where I come in. But yeah, I think pushing myself out of corporate and not wanting to do the things that the big businesses were doing. There was at some point I wanted to be a CFO and lost myself in that, right? And that's what pushed me out to want like more peace, more joy, and being able to help those who look like me and serve them in a different capacity.
And so why was your target entrepreneurs? Because you could have went any direction with this.
Yeah, I could have did corporate contracts,
exactly.
Right?
You didn't have to work with us, So what made you say, you know what, I want to focus on entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so my mom and dad were both entrepreneurs.
You grew up in a household?
Yes.
Wow.
So I grew up in a single, it's very interesting how my family dynamic is. So I'm one of 3 girls. I'm the youngest. And we grew up in a split household. So back in the day, my parents did what they needed to do. So I grew up with my mom. My older sister grew up with our dad, and then I have an older half sister who grew up with her mom. So in the household that I grew up in, I understood that my mom did what she could to hustle and make things work. My dad did what he did. He was a brick masonry, right? So just seeing him struggle to make ends meet and not having someone that he could talk to figure out how to budget his way to wealth I think is what really tugged at my heartstrings. And I'd say like when I was in school and I had the opportunity to be the school bank teller, I had questions like, well, if money exists in the bank, like why do people struggle with basic needs? Like food stamps, right?
Yeah.
I had food stamps in college, right? Why do we struggle with those basic needs? And where are we lacking in the regard to understand how do we use money as a tool and not the love of money, but where do we bridge that gap where folks who are entrepreneurs can shift between the entrepreneurship where it's the hustler mentality into a small business owner where you're thinking about strategy into leaving a legacy that can impact your kids and your kids' kids. So I just had that was an unnatural fit for some, but for me it just came like clockwork, and I wanted to give back to those who were like my mom and dad.
I love that. So now you grew up with your mom being an entrepreneur, your dad, he also was an entrepreneur. Now you're leaving a corporate job. How do you start your own business?
Woo, that was tough. So I started my business 6 years ago.
Really?
It was called something completely different.
I would think that you've had it for forever.
No, 6 years ago. And the other fun fact about me is like I had a near-death experience when I was having my kids. So I'm a twin mom, and I was in the hospital on bed rest for 7 weeks. So during that time, I had a lot to think about, And after the C-section, I lost a lot of blood to the point where I was about to pass out and needed a blood transfusion. So at that point in time, I already knew that the road ahead was going to be tough for recovery. So I started my business 6 months after, when my kids were 6 months. So I was like, okay, I need something different. My kids were back-to-back hospital because they were preemies, and I couldn't keep up in corporate, right? So that's where the toughness like built me to be different. And I was like, okay, well, if my mom and dad were entrepreneurs, like I could figure this thing out,
sure
right?
Can.
Everything is figure outable, and that's one thing that I love.
That's a quote. Say it again.
Everything is figure outable, right?
Yes.
So one thing that my corporate job, which I loved my corporate job, is it taught me how to think critically, right? So when we didn't know the answer, we had to figure it out. Like we couldn't just sit there and kind of like wallow in just like the unknown. So we had to figure it out. So I went out to Google. I was like, let me just figure this thing out. Let me, go how to start a business. And I would just piece things together from Google to figure out, okay, I go here to the Secretary of State. I start this business. Then I go to Duns and Bradstreet. I'm going to just figure it out. And just through that, I would learn through the mistakes. I was one of the ones who put my personal address on Secretary of State, right?
I think we all did.
Right? Exactly.
We didn't have a business yet.
Exactly.
So, definitely, I think I need to probably go back and change that.
Right. So
I
it's
think
like,
it's still on there.
Exactly. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
It's trial. And that's one thing that I learned about being an entrepreneur is that it's really just a big scientific experiment. Like the quicker you learn to pivot, the quicker you can get to what's destined for you and the promise, that God has for you.
I definitely believe that. You have to know how to pivot.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have so many trials and tribulations.
That part.
Yeah.
So
once you started helping entrepreneurs, what did you realize that was a common
thread?
Yes, with everyone.
So when I started my business, I was handing out like discoveries like candy, like free candy. And I originally started the business. The business was named Litfin Consulting. And I was trying to be unique with my name. And nobody understood what it meant. But I started the business as a personal financial coach. Like at the time, I wasn't a CPA.
Okay.
I started it as a personal financial coach to just understand where people were lacking in the regard of budgeting and financing. And as I was doing like my competitive research analysis, I came across Dave Ramsey, and then I came across the Budgetnista. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not gonna operate here long because there are already two prominent figures that occupy this space, right? And I'm the first usually at everything that I try to do to like stand out. So in helping entrepreneurs, when I was giving out those free discoveries and deciding whether I was going to go back to school to get my master's and my CPA, what stood out to me as a common thread is that nobody knew what they were doing. They were still willing to try.
Yeah.
They were still willing to try. And I was like, well, let me just, continue to have these free discoveries. And at some point when time just got ahead of me and I didn't have enough time, I would add a $25 fee so that I could make a living.
Okay.
And common thread still popped up. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone who's honest. They're looking for someone who's trustworthy. And they're looking for someone who has empathy, right? So that became the common thread. And then what I realized is that while no one knew what they were doing, a lot of people were bootstrapping, and a lot of people had a lot of gumption and a lot of creativity, but they had no way to prioritize the precious resources, which was their time, energy, and money.
Yes.
So I was like, if I can create a system around this would allow someone to do the 3 things that I focus on with the company that I own, the Money Council, which is create a lot of wealth, keep it in the family, right? So that you can keep it, multi-generationally. So we help individuals activate wealth, slash taxes, and preserve legacy.
I love that. I'm in a beauty community, so we definitely need you, because I feel like a lot of people in my industry, we're very creative. We have a lot of talent, and we focus on that. We focus on the aesthetics, the marketing, the likes, the views. We're making money. But when it comes tax time, we're printing out everything and getting everything together, and it's just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Or some people not paying taxes at all.
That part.
So what do you say, to someone that is a business owner, but they feel like, well, I'm not really trying to own a house right now or anything, so I'm not going to really show my income until I want to buy something.
That's a heavy question. I'm trying to figure out how to answer it. I'm finding it. So I would say that when it comes to, I think taxes is really about managing optics with the IRS, right? You're always going to have an op. It's just, what op are you willing to fight with, right? And the IRS is your silent partner. And the name of the game is just figuring out how you can pay less to your silent partner if you play by the rules. But you don't know the rules if you don't employ someone who's gone to school to learn the rules. So a lot of people feel, and it's due to the industry making someone feel that they can do their own taxes without understanding the details behind it. But that type of marketing is for someone who has a W-2 job and simple income.
Okay.
Business is very different. Very, very different. So I would say to the person who feels like that they can wait until the end of the year to get everything together. Most CPAs, we love business owners, but we can't care about your business if you don't show strength and do care for your business. We can lead you to water, but we can't make you drink, right? So the biggest advantage that you have on your side is being strategic about how, when, and where you spend your money, how you invest in the business, and how you prioritize those investments to show up on your tax returns in a manner that benefits you and your household. So, and that can't happen after December 31st. It has to happen before December 31st. So you can't get upset with your tax person or your CPA.
But they do.
When they hand you the bill. They do. For the lack of a better term, I can't pull deductions out of nowhere if there's no source documentation to support that you actually swipe the card in your business to prove it. And a lot of people don't understand, well, why is your price 3x higher? Well, I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want you to go to jail, right?
Yeah.
So the way that I have to prepare this tax return has to be supported by tax law, and it has to be supported by things that actually happened in the business. We can't just make things up.
Can't fabricate it.
Right.
Then also, when you look at things on social media, right? They talk about, when you own your own business, you can write off things. You can write off this Rolex. You can write off this Cartier bracelet. You can write off your Versace shoes. Now we know that's not true.
No, not at all.
So can you talk about that, and why are people, saying this to entrepreneurs when it's not true?
Yeah.
But, these are people with big following, and, they have the luxurious lifestyle. So people are like, I'm going to go buy me a Rolex. That's a part of my business. That's going to help me. That's a marketing tool. But it's I talked to my CPA. He
who told you that?
What?
Yes.
Because it's so true. We look at certain podcasts is like what they say is golden, but that's not all the way always true. Some people drop real knowledge and real gems, but majority of the time it's just people talking.
I think you have to look at their rationale as to why they're telling you that information. What platform are they on? Are they getting paid for views? Right? So I go back to managing optics with the IRS, but I also go back to if there's a CPA influencer that has to manage his or her own optics, they're going to tell you the things that are sexy. But the way that a CPA should always respond is it depends, right? Most CPAs, they have their lane, whether it's audit, whether it's tax, whether it's general accounting.
Okay.
So you can't assume that all CPAs have background in tax law, because that's not the case. Right?
Okay.
So
I thought that.
So the way that you should hire your CPA is based off of their expertise. It's based off of their niche, right? So you would have to ask your CPA, what niche do you serve? And understand that even though that we filed the tax return, your name is on that tax return. That is a federal document that goes to the IRS, and you cannot default to you cannot default by saying, well, the CPA told me that I can do this, because you signed the tax return. Right? So I think CPAs do it, and the CPAs might hate me for this, but they do it for clout. They do it for views.
Okay.
And you have to fact check the fact checker. So I think there's a lot that goes into it, but ultimately at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether the CPA filed your return. It comes back to you.
I hope y'all took all that in. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your taxes.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And a lot of people will then go back and say, well, why are you 3x higher? Well, part of the reason is because you're paying me to educate you, right? Even though you're responsible for this tax return, there are still ethics that I have to follow, right? And with me having 2 kids, like, I don't want to be in jail just as much as you don't want to be in jail. Like, I need my kids to be able to
get
thrive.
locked up,
Right. Like, I know I'm at Orange right now, but, you know, I don't want to be in an orange Dickie suit, right? So I think a lot of people just have to understand that at the end of the day, you work on your taxes together.
Okay.
And you want to hire someone that cares about your family and your legacy just as much as they care about their own.
I agree. So now we come to the segment where I call it dropping gems with Gigi. So I want you to drop 3 gems to entrepreneurs to help motivate them, inspire them.
Okay. So I'll go to my philosophy, right? No one started the business to work 80 hours in the business. We started the business ultimately so that we can enjoy our livelihood. And I have a philosophy where it's like you want to have life fluency, right? And the way that I describe life fluency is you want to be able to pick and choose how you spend your 40 hours in a week. I personally don't like to work more than 10 hours in my business, and I want to spend 30 hours with my family. But the first gem I'll have is that you control your time, and the way that your business is structured and set up from an automation standpoint is going to support you in your goal of achieving life fluency. So that's the first gem. The second gem I'll say is you need to be able to master capacity management, right? So going back to, at least for me, my 10-30 split, the way to manage capacity, the way to master capacity is knowing what your goal, mission, and vision is, to be able to say no politely when things don't align, whether that's energy wise, whether it's time wise, or whether it's like the mission and vision that you were created to execute. So say no more, right? Like, a lot of people are excited about being in the rooms. A lot of people are excited about showing up and rubbing shoulders with the who's who. I don't believe in that philosophy, believe it or not. I'm an introvert. Like, I am hands down. I will hug the wall, right? I'm an introvert, right? Like I slept, I want to say like 12 hours yesterday to prepare for being outside today.
Really?
So I'm an introvert, hands down. So
I would have never thought that.
I think a lot of people have to understand where do their yeses fit and where do their nos fit. And I say no more times than I say yes because the energy has to match. If the energy does not match.
And I see that you're big on boundaries.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like that's something that I definitely struggled with for years when it came to business because I was like a former people pleaser.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I'm going to say yes because I don't want them to leave or I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. Like, I never really thought about my feelings. And so I feel like through therapy, it taught me, like, it's okay if you're not comfortable to say no.
I think a lot of women, a lot of Black women or women of color, at least how I grew up in my household, is that, what's the saying? Like, you're seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't know how to express our emotions. We don't know how to tell people how things make us feel politely. Right? And it's so funny. Like, when I look at my boys, you know, that I'm raising now with my spouse, they have big emotions. And I see myself through their lens where how can I not be like my mom where she was like, just go to your room.
Right.
Right? Or just figure it out. Right? As women, we were taught to, you know, be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
So in knowing that, I think we suppress a lot of the things that we go through. And then at least in the type of household that I grew up in, a, you know, very traumatic environment, for me, I use escapism to survive, right? So school was fun for me. I was like, oh, I get to go to school and get out the house. Like, let's go, right? So I think a part of that, if a lot of women did grow up in a similar environment, is that we have to learn. It goes back to the boundaries of saying no. And I don't have to explain myself. I just know that if the energy is a mismatch and it does not feel right here in my gut, I'm good.
And I can tell that you're an energy person because when I hit you up, you were like, and okay, what we gonna be talking about and what we gonna be doing, and you were like, okay, girl, 11.
But you know why I do that? You know why I do that? So, sensory input, like I get overwhelmed with sensory input because my brain works 100 miles an hour, right? And I will do things fast so that I can get it done. But what calms me is if I know the environment before I show up.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, I need to know the environment. Right.
You were like, first. Okay, so what was going to be looking like? Where's it going to be at? What's the address? I was like, okay, I got you.
And then a part of it is, as a CPA, like I'm thorough, right? So
you thorough.
Like, it's like a checklist in my mind that goes out where I'm like, I need to know the what, the where, the why, the how, the when, right?
I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
But listen, I'm happy to have you here because I was like, ooh, how is she going to come? Or, you know, I'm really happy and grateful that you came and that you shared like some of your story with us. Yeah. And then if you can let the people know where they can find you at, you know, your Instagram, if you're on TikTok, Facebook, your website.
Yeah. So I personally, I'm doing this thing where I'm building out my personal brand now. Okay. Right? So I'm trying to disconnect myself from the business as I expand the business. So my accounting and tax planning firm is the Money Council. So Money Council spelled COUNCIL. So if people are looking for tax planning, tax preparation, bookkeeping, general CFO advice, it's going to be the Money Council. But if you'd like to know who I am as a person, or what do I believe, what are my belief systems, that's the Legacy CPA on all platforms.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm so happy you could come today because, like I said, once I met you, I was like, we got to lock in. We got to do something together. I didn't know what we were going to be doing together, but I said, listen, I'm following you. You follow me. Whatever I come up with, I don't know if it's going to be an event or whatever, but it ended up being an interview.
Yes, and I love it. I love interviews. This is my element.
I'm happy you are here, and I hope you guys took away some gems from her today. And that's the end of the episode of Behind the Beauty. I'm your host, Gigi Jeans. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this video. Peace.